Welcome to the thisABILITY Adventures podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson.
And I'm Chip Dodd from Team thisABILITY.
So we are here today, Chip and I, with Tomas Diaz and Anna Edwards. They just did the 30-hour Two Rivers Adventure Race in Ralston, Pennsylvania. It was a rootstock race. It was a USARA qualifier, so the winner won a entry into nationals next year. It was also an ARWS North American Championship, which was the first of its kind. So the winner also won an entry into the World Championship in Canada next year. So it looked like it was a pretty amazing race with a huge turnout. I think there were 60 teams, something like that. And Anna and Tomas represented Team thisABILITY PR. For, I think last time we talked, we couldn't decide if it was Puerto Rico or personal record.
Well, personal relations or public relations.
That's right. Public relations even. Yeah. So in the mixed two-person category, I guess it was the mixed open category. So we want to hear all about it. You guys raced before at the Chattanooga Epic, and you must have liked racing together because you did it again.
Yeah.
So start us off, Tomas. How did things go for you?
Well, I mean, let's just say, of course, that of course everything could have gone better. so this is not what I would consider the best race. I'm talking the best race, the race was good. I'm talking the best performance. So, but anyway, pushing the negativity aside, I think other than that, I actually enjoyed all of it. I actually liked it. At first, the prologue was weird because they gave us this little map that we had to like do a little puzzle, like arts and craft with scotch tape. It was just weird, but anyway, Anna and I just like we did it very quickly, and off we went. And
that was the prologue, and that's why scotch tape was mandatory.
Yes.
Yeah. Had you had any other ideas of what it might be, or did you think that's what it would be for the scotch tape?
I thought that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. How many? So it was a map to a prologue, and you had to tape it together.
It was just a generic map.
Okay.
And then you take the map tape together, you give it, and then now they go ahead and give you the envelopes with the maps.
Okay, so it wasn't a map you had to use for anything. You just had to assemble it and show that you did it correctly.
And then you get the maps, and then I just look at the maps and whoop, let's go.
Well, it's creative. That's cool. And so did you get the maps beforehand or right at the start?
No, after you give them the scotch tape puzzle, that's when you get the maps.
Wow. So you had no time with the maps before race start?
No, zero.
Correct.
Wow.
So we loaded the buses at 6:30, and when you loaded the bus, you also got the rules of travel, the course book. But you did not have maps.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, Brent and Abby I think they're kind of known for that, where it's just like you've got nothing. Like half the challenge of the navigation is the fact that you don't get to sit in a lighted room for 2.5 hours looking over it and planning your route and measuring. It's like a navigator has to be on their game to be able to get the maps and just go.
Right. Yep. So we hit the ground running for sure. But like it was about, what would you say, Tomas, an hour 15-minute bus ride? Something like that, every mile that bus went, I was just thinking, this is how much farther we're going to have to travel by our own power to get back.
Yeah, that's always daunting. Well, they did put out a race schematic, though. It looks like you guys had, and it was originally supposed to have a pack raft section that had to be canceled due to low water.
Right.
And so that's a lot of trekking and biking. I think it says the schematic says about 102 miles in total if you did all of the points. So Anna, what was your strategy before you saw the maps about did you think you would be clearing, or what was your goal?
Well, our goal from the get-go was definitely all the mandatory points. Like you mentioned, the top teams were there. We were not trying to hang with them. We were just trying to survive and get our mandatory points, which we did a very good job of in the beginning. So that was our strategy. And then, when they did throw a little loophole in there, there was one area where we had decided to skip and keep going, but they had made 3 points in that area mandatory. But we didn't know that until we got there. So that kind of put a wrench in things. And to also mention, there were no hard cutoffs except the 2 p.m. cutoff deadline for the race. So Tomas and I made a cutoff for ourselves of midnight to get to TA5, which was the only place we saw our bins. The only, which was the next to the last hike. So you would see your bin, go on the hike, come back, and game over, right? So we had made a hard cutoff for ourselves for TA5 for midnight. Well, adding those 3 mandatory points, and they let us pick any of those points, but we had to come back with 3. When we got to TA5, which was our cars, which was we also didn't know until game day. So our bins were our cars. And if I had known that, I wouldn't have stayed up so late packing my bin so carefully the night before. So adding those 3 mandatory points, we got to TA5 instead of midnight at 1:45. And we gave ourselves a 2-hour buffer to not come in late for the race. So that 2 hours was eaten up, that an hour and 45 minutes with those 3 mandatory points. So we kind of were like, oh, we got to get going.
Wow.
So they gave you, like, you didn't know that they were mandatory. So like they give you the maps or tell you they're mandatory when you get to the transition area. Like you thought you could skip those points, and then mid-race you find out, holy crap, we've got to go out and get 3.
That's pretty much how it is, because at each transition that we had, they gave us new maps, and then they also give us new instructions as well. Because then, because of course, things change. So
and they were really smart about it. They made us sign that we received the instruction.
Yes.
Yes. That's typical with ARWS is that because what you don't want is a team to come through and a volunteer, didn't tell them exactly right. Mm-hmm. And that's what's different. I think with ARWS, one of the value propositions that Heidi and the team on ARWS said is that any instruction, let's say, for example, the paddle got canceled mid-race, everybody that comes through transition would have to sign off that this has changed and yada, yada. So I think that's for, again, our podcast usually is educational. So it's be used to that. If you go into an ARWS sanctioned race, there's going to be some of those standards. It's really interesting though that that they added the maps at each transition and the instructions at each transition. That's really unique. I haven't seen that in a race, and that adds a lot of strategy.
No. We had a rule book at the beginning, which is the one that we read throughout in the bus ride, and that's what we learned that in the first stage there were 3 checkpoints that were not mandatory that were mandatory now because they canceled the paddle. So that we learned on the rule book, and they added that to the rule book. But when you get to each TA, well, they had to change also some rules. Like they had to, the bike O loop that Anna is talking about. There were like multiple checkpoints, and what they did is they didn't tell you which was mandatory or not. They just told you need to get at least 3. In essence, 3 of these are mandatory, whichever one you want, but 3 of them are mandatory. Mm-hmm. So you select whatever you wanted in there.
Was it obvious which 3 to get, or was it like you actually had to sit down and figure out which are the most efficient 3 if you're trying to move along because you're already behind schedule?
Yes. So no, as a matter of fact, I picked 3, and Anna was like, these other 3 around here, they look further apart, but there's less elevation.
So I think we need to look at the tracker. So I just pulled it up. So that was your first trek. And
yes.
Is that where you had to get 3 points, or
no?
That was
it was a bike. It was a bike.
there.
Okay.
So those
So
3 points there, yes.
So you had the opening trek, then you had a bike over to
Yes.
this trek section, which you were hoping.
No, that's not a trek section. That's a bike O loop section.
It's a bike O. And so then you found out that of all of these, you had to get 3 of them.
Correct.
Oh,
I see. So you had to go either clockwise or counterclockwise. There was no cut.
Correct.
You had to decide.
Yeah. Yes, but also not
3
shown
to get.
there. Yes, but also not shown there is that they move those points. So,
Right.
for example, the 1 point you see that point over there, that one that's moved.
I see.
Okay.
So that checkpoint that is shown there was no checkpoint there.
Yeah,
because that one was moved. And then they put like areas in the map that were now beyond the limit and stuff like that. And they moved some of those points around. So that's what they did.
That's cool. They made it such that you could go clockwise or counterclockwise. They
Correct.
look equal distant. You'd really have to look at the elevation or really it's nuancy. A really good navigator could figure out maybe an edge that would give you 5 extra minutes, 10 extra minutes. But other than that, it's almost equal on how much
for
time
example, I originally wanted to get the 3 points that are to the south closest to the starting there, right? But then there's one that is not shown there. There's 1 point that is not shown there because like they changed the points. Okay, it's really not shown there because they changed the points last minute because of park issues and stuff. But then Anna was like, hey, no, the elevation looks better on those 3 points on the north, and that's what we decided to get then.
Yeah, I didn't like how close those squiggly lines were on the 3 points he originally picked out.
Yeah. So that right there is TA3 and TA4. And so your cutoff that you self-imposed was over here at TA5. That's
5, right. Yeah. Which was the only place we saw our bins the entire race.
So we, in nationals, we didn't have bins at all for 30 hours. And it was an interesting experience. It kind of made us feel like it was a good thing for our team because sometimes we waste a lot of time in our bin. And we realized that, sometimes you just don't need as much transition stuff as you might think. How was your experience not having a TA until then? Like, did you have enough food and did you get stressed about, oh, I don't have a certain thing until you got there? Or was it just fine?
For me, I would have liked my trekking poles earlier. Looking at the course schematic, I was like, it's a lot of biking. I'm not going to leave my poles. I think I was like one of the very few people that did not have poles out there, and I missed them because that was a lot of elevation, a lot of scrambling in and out of reentrance. And with there not being water there, the poles helped me find solid ground versus because the ground was moist and damp and you sunk because that's where water used to be. So the trekking poles helped me find solid ground or rock. It would help me find rock a lot sooner than stepping somewhere and sinking 3 to 4 inches.
Yeah. It's hard to know how early on in a race you'll use poles, but I do think Pennsylvania is usually surprising in its elevation. And maybe just Rootstock Racing races always surprise me with the elevation.
And usually they want you to like trek down a riverbed where it's like wonky, your feet are wet, and holes really well when it's slippery rocks and you don't want to fall.
Well, yes. However, a lot of those what normally will be checkpoints on falls, they were dry falls. So, so there were no falls. I mean, a lot of the checkpoints that were supposed to be falls, you're looking for a falls, there's no falls.
There's been no water on the East Coast.
Exactly. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
So what did you think, Tomas, about not getting your gear bin until almost 2 a.m.?
I was totally fine with that. Basically, I pack. I usually travel light. Now in the picture it doesn't look like, but that's because I'm having her backpack in the front. But anyway, I usually travel light anyway. So I usually go. I'm usually okay with my beef jerky and some nuts and stuff like that, and then I have my salt pills and stuff like that, and I don't think I need much. As a matter of fact, I remember at C2C, the people were the volunteers were trying to get the volunteers in C2C. They're like, no, I'll take Tomas's bin because they knew that my bean was like very, very light also. So I'm kind of on the lighter side always. So that's just how I do it. So I know I didn't miss anything. However, because I was so focused on the navigation, sometimes I forget to eat, and sometimes I have Anna going. I'm looking at the map. I'm moving this way, and then all of a sudden I see a sausage in my face going, bro. And that's here. That's like she like you like here eat this here eat this here eat that.
Yeah.
That's great. That's important.
Good.
Someone needs to be, watching over you
Yeah,
guys if you're deep in the maps.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys have one set of maps or two sets of maps?
Just
One.
one.
Just one.
Mhm.
And I meant to ask you more about the gear bin and the packing because we don't talk about what we actually pack very often. Did you feel like you had enough stuff in your pack? Too much? Too little? What would you change if you did it again?
In my pack, I changed
No,
nothing. But
Anna, because
oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, because you already said you pack light, and it seems like
Yes.
you think you have it figured out, which may be.
Well, maybe not necessarily.
Yeah, okay. Well, Anna, what about you?
I think I did myself a good favor this time. I knew looking at the schematic that it would be a while before we can get any food. So I knew if my pack was going to be heavy, it was going to be food wise.
Yeah.
This go around, what I did that I have not done in previous races was write the calories on the outside of the Ziploc bag. So if I didn't feel in the mood of something, I could switch it out, and I wasn't switching out something that was 400 calories with something that was 150 calories. So that worked well for me. And another reason Tomas and I work well together is if I'm not in the mood to eat something, I just give it to him and he eats it. He doesn't have any food allergies or anything like that. So if I don't feel like I'm in the mood for something, or if I've taken 2 or 3 bites of something and I just don't feel like it anymore, he eats it.
Yeah, that's great.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I also figured out that a McDonald's cheeseburger works well on the bike. Because if you hold it the right way, the wind will blow the wrapper open and you just bite it.
And it doesn't go bad. It could be there for like 4 days. I mean, it's already
Exactly.
like mummified.
Uh-huh.
I love
yeah. Well,
Domino's. Yeah, it's Domino's gluten-free pizza. Like you can put that in a Ziploc bag. Like you take
Mhm.
the two slices, you slap them together, put in a Ziploc bag. 3 or 4 days later, you're good to go. I'm sure
yeah,
some food safety person will tell me you're going to die, but it's never let me down.
the other thing regarding food that they also told us in the race was that you know all the way up to TA5 there was really not much opportunity to buy food either.
Right.
So it's like you gotta get your food, like whatever you're eating, you're gonna get it through the whole race. Now, of course, at one of the TAs they surprised us with grilled cheese, but other than that, then that's it. So there
Mhm.
was very little opportunities, if any, to go ahead and get a gas station hot dog or whatever. No, there was none of
Mhm.
that.
How
Yeah,
about
so you pretty much
water?
had to be self-sufficient.
How about water? If the streams were empty, like how did you get water at TAs as you went through the race, or did you have to find a way to filter it, even though there's very little water on the course?
With regards to water, I have my 3 liters and an extra bottle, and that was plenty to then refill at each TA. So by refilling at each TA, I was fine. However, Anna has a story about her bladder. Go ahead with your story about your bladder,
Oh
Anna.
no.
Oh,
So of all the things I forgot on the ride up to Pennsylvania, I had a 9-hour ride to Pennsylvania. And then I got there at 3:55 in the morning and I had to work the next day and then do check in for our bikes and then get sleep and then race.
wow.
So of all the things I forgot my hydration bladder.
No.
So Tomas and I, when we were running our errands and went to the store, I bought some little piddly, like 2 or 3 liter one from Walmart that would not like dispel the water. So I was like biting on the valve and it was like barely a trickle. So it was interesting because we just ran the race on bottles and I refilled from that bladder, that reservoir. But it wouldn't, the hose wouldn't work.
Oh, man.
I'm from my bladder too, so the water that I was carrying, I was filling the bottle. So I was like giving her the bottle, go ahead, and like I was refilling with my water for her. But for some reason, even though I usually drink a lot in this race, for whatever reason, water was not an issue for me. Usually it is, but in this race it wasn't.
Yep. So again, going back to the educational aspect of our podcast.
Sure.
Never, if you can possibly do it, never race with new equipment. You always train with it first, test it out, make sure it works, and then race with it. And we've made this mistake 100 times, even though we know what we're doing. Whatever, you put a new chain on your bike, and all of a sudden your cassette's skipping, and you're like, shit, this isn't working. So that's one of those for everybody out there. Do the checklist before you go to the race, test all of your equipment, and do whatever you do not to buy something right before the race, because you never know. Like you just had, Anna, something from Walmart, you think it's going to work, and then it fails. And it seems like Murphy is just a mean mother effer. He will show up and kick you right in the beginning of the race.
I think almost every race we have forgotten something, though.
Something, yes.
It doesn't matter how many lists we have.
Right.
Maybe we've gotten better, but I think, what are some of the things we've forgotten?
Just everything.
You forgot your helmet one time.
Oh, no!
Yeah.
I don't know.
But either way.
Anyway.
Whatever. Don't trust stuff. Maybe an REI, but like Walmart especially. I mean, I love Walmart. They let us camp in their parking lot daily. But I'm just saying, like, whatever it is, test it first before you go into the race, right? And even if you bought it the day before, that's the educational aspect.
Yeah. So let's move on from that. What about the navigation? Like, Rootstock Racing usually has pretty technically challenging navigation, I think. So what did you think of it?
I screwed up a lot of times, more than I should have.
It just wasn't our day. It wasn't our day. And we did the best we could and corrected early when we caught it. But overall, it just wasn't our day.
Do you agree, Tomas?
Yeah. However, I'm going to say that one of the biggest screw-up wasn't even in the woods. It was on the bike. Remember, Anna, the biggest screw-up that we did in the bike? Oh, boy. You can show the map again if you want. This was I didn't know that screw-up was recorded there in the GPX file, but it's there. I saw it.
It was about, what, 3 or 4 miles?
I don't know.
Wow. It was that?
No. That one was okay. That one.
This one.
Whoa.
Basically, Here's what happened. I'm looking at my map, okay, and then basically the map shows like what appears to be a bridge. There's a river between those two, right? And the map shows what appeared to be a river. Sorry, the bigger map. The bigger map shows what appears to be a little bridge connecting the river on the north side. No, go further, like zoom in, like there. It's noticeable. That means like there, right there.
Yep.
So when you look at that portion, right, you know that part where you go all the way there and you have to go back there. That's the one, right? So that was one. That was my biggest screw up, because basically I was there with a map, looking at everything, and then I go and tell Anna to turn right there when we're heading west, turn right, and then we keep going, because in the map it showed what appeared to be a bridge connecting to the northern side. It showed like a little bridge connecting there, but then there was an inset on the map that I forgot to see the inset. And when you look at the inset shows there's no bridge in the northern side connecting those two. So then when my compass started heading east, I'm like, wait a second, where's the bridge that I'm looking for? Oh, there's no. And then I say, Anna, stop. We may need to go back. I look at the map, look at the inset. Oh, okay, Anna, we need to go back. The bridge is down there in the south. It's not in the north.
Well, at least it looks like it's not like a very painful area to do that in. Was it fairly flat? And
it was very flat. Yeah.
Yes.
It was very flat, very straight, but very cold, because we came ripping off that mountain. I mean, ripping off that mountain. And so we got to the base and what seemed to be like a little town, and we're going straight. And I hear Tomas go, uh-oh, Anna.
And so I guess you guys
turn around.
at this point, you guys had made the decision. You're cutting the CP E1 or whatever. That was like basically, let's call it a pro point, because it looks like all that elevation.
Correct.
There's a big time penalty for trying to get that point. So you guys were trying to hightail it across.
Correct. Yeah, and then all of that blue line in the south, there was pretty much all of it downhill. So you just go and bomb most of it, which of course you're bombing all of that, but it's like almost 35 degrees. So you're bombing like you're going with the cold, like you know there's some shivers there and everything because you're going downhill. You're not warming yourself up either.
So what were you wearing at the time? Did you wear rain jackets and rain pants, or just rain jackets?
I had on 2 pairs of mountain biking gloves and the rain jacket, and that was it.
For the bike section, all the way up till like one of the TAs, I was wearing what you see right there, the long sleeves disability church, and that's it. So it was quite cold. But then, of course, in the last section of the bike, I realized, you know what, it's already way too cold. So I just put a rain jacket, like a raincoat on top of it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I tried.
Our feet were wet because, and this was not our fault. There was a checkpoint that was in an area that had no trespassing signs. Like we were boxed in with no trespassing signs.
We need to talk about that. Yes.
Yes. So this was right before it got dark, right before we're bombing down the mountain when it was dark. So our feet were wet because we did this river crossing, and a lot of teams were there. It was like an AR meeting. Some teams were standing by the water. Some teams were standing a little more up the road. Because what happened was there was a checkpoint that was placed in a private property area where it should not have been. And Tomas says, we need to go. And I dug my heels in and I said, no, because, we were boxed in with the no trespassing signs. And I didn't want the tracker to ding where that was. And it was even the gate that we went through that we had to go to get to this point. It said no trespassing, no snowmobiles, no riding.
No riding,
and I'm like,
no riding, no nothing.
We're doing 2 of the 3 no-nos. We're riding and we're trespassing. So I dug my heels in and I said, no, we're not going this way. And we were both right because we were in no trespassing. And the race director said, we will not have to go on private property and we will not have to trespass. So I was hanging on that, and Tomas was right because he showed me on the map there's no other way to get to it. So we were both right. But because of that river crossing, we got wet.
What ended up happening on that road in particular is apparently it was a fire road, not necessarily a private property, but it was a fire road, and it did have the no trespassing sign. It had signs all over the place, and don't come here. There's a gate there saying. Like, no. And Brent told us, like in the pre-race meeting, he's like, if you see a no trespassing sign, don't go through there. So that's why there were a lot of people like confused because the map tells you to go there. Like there was no confusion. The map actually shows you that you have to go through there, but the sign says otherwise. So it's one of, and I was like, let's go, let's keep going. There's no other way. This is the way.
So then you forfeited that point.
No, we did get it, but it cost us a lot of time because there were a lot of people there to the point where only Tomas and I were there and one solo racer, Eric. Everybody else had gone. And we were still deliberating.
Well, they went for the point or they gave the point and moved on?
No. There was a point there, okay? But it was not an out and back. It's like there was no other way. You had to go through private property, not just to get to that point, but to continue, to keep going.
Right.
Like there was no other way around that.
Okay.
So that's what
we need to see what you're talking about.
Let's see what you're talking about. So
where was
already we're moving that direction, right?
Let me see. It's like right there.
In here?
Yeah, right. No, north of that. Go north of that. I think right there, right there. The 2 points before that. Oh, look, yeah, that one. That's the one. Yes.
BP9.
Yes, that's the one because it showed the side road that you take to get. That's what. Yeah, you see the back and forth going on.
What do we do?
Yeah.
So that is again from an educational standpoint. Many adventure races, the race director has gotten permission for us to go through private property. So jumping fences is kind of just part of the sport. And I think that we should have that in our mind as the default, unless the race director says, thou shalt not go through the private property. And so in this situation, in this one race, they said you won't have to jump fences. Meanwhile, you had to jump fences, and that's confusing and it's frustrating. But
it was more like a gate.
This is where, if you know the race director, you know Brent did not misplace the point. I mean, like,
correct.
I think he's one of the ones that are known that you're not on an Easter egg hunt like some other race directors, and you know that the point's probably in the right spot, and it's probably okay to jump the fence. But on the other hand, for new people that are brand new to our sport, it feels weird to be jumping the fence and going. But if you absolutely know where you are and you absolutely know that there's a fence, but the point's in there, it's okay to jump the fence. Usually, let's call it 80% okay to jump the fence as long as you know exactly where you are, because the race director probably planned it out. But if you don't know where you are, please don't jump the fence. Somebody will fast.
No, everything. Everything added up. Everything added up, because that river that you had to cross on the west side of that road, that river was there. You crossed that. The road was there. The shape of the road was exactly the same as the map. The only thing was a little sign there. That's it. But everything else matched perfectly. So it's like, it's gotta be this. And then, like, once we go ahead and go into that road, it's like, I'm like, okay, there's a re-entrant coming on the road. Checkpoint 9 is gonna be there. So I mean, everything added up.
That's perfect. So you oriented the map. You made sure that all of the attack points lined up, perfect bearings.
Correct. Yeah.
The road matched. Everything's right. You knew where you were. Hit it.
Yeah. And not only that, each and every team had to go through there. So there was no way around that.
Yeah, we didn't see them again.
We all had to go through there.
And again, if somebody else goes ahead of you, they're the ones that get shot, not you. So it's fine. Let them go.
Yeah. So
you hear gunfire, turn around and go back. It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's a bad thing. Don't go there.
Yeah. So our feet were wet from that when we came ripping off that mountain when it was dark. So it was freezing. So by the time we got to TA5, which was my car, it was 1:45 and it was 34 degrees.
Wow.
And it took there was ice on my car. It took forever. Like, we had the seat warmers on, we had the vents pointed to us. Like, it took forever to warm up. And I was surprised because I said, well, while we're sitting here, I'm gonna go ahead and change socks. Like, it was alarming when I touched my feet to change out my Ingenji socks, which took forever. It was alarming how cold my feet were.
I think like just being wet makes you so much colder. Like, you can be the same temperature and you're dry and have no problem, but once you add being wet to it, and feet too, I mean, yeah,
feet, again, from an educational standpoint, if your shoes are like, normal bike shoes are fairly tight, and if they're super tight, then when it gets cold, your feet get really cold because it's compressing the blood out of your toes and stuff. They've got one is you should try your best to find the wider toe box bike shoes, and then also you can get those bike covers that stop the wind from blowing through and causing the evaporative cooling. But either way, like, it's really hard to keep your feet warm while you're biking with wet feet at night, 30 degrees. Like, that's a puzzle that if you want to do the longer races where it's overnight, you definitely want to solve that problem, or at least have your gear dialed in.
Well, I don't think you should forget that baggies work really well. Like, I usually have a couple of baggies along for,
like Ziploc,
like
freezer bags, gallon.
It doesn't matter if they're freezer or not, but you'd think they'd be uncomfortable. But if you put them, over your socks in your shoes, it's pretty magical because it stops the wind, and it's lightweight and cheap. And all the shoe covers I've had, which they're fine too. It just, they get torn up, and like, you paid a lot of money for them just to be tromping through the woods and tearing them up. Like, I'd rather trash the baggies. And anyway.
Good point. And you can put 2 baggies in your backpack if you plan on going on an overnight in cold weather. 2 baggies are like, 1 ounce, nothing.
So how hard was it to get out of the car once you got warmed up? I mean, I think I would have, if we were doing that race, we would all have to say, nope, can't do it. It's just going to draw you in and it's going to be so hard to leave.
Well, we had to do it because we had the map switch. So we were like, okay, we'll sit in the car with the light on and look at the map, which we did. And Tomas actually fell asleep. I was in no rush to wake him up as I was changing out my socks. And eating food.
Yeah, you get warm and comfortable. And so how long did you stay in your car?
An hour. And it felt like if you would have asked me how long it was, I would have said 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And been way off because it was an hour.
Oh, that is so how transitioning goes. It's like the time just poof, it's gone. Crazy. Yeah. Well, I would have welcomed warmth, I'm sure. It would have been so hard to leave. I always hate that race too.
It was hard to leave that, yes.
Yeah. And so you got there at 2 a.m. thinking you're behind schedule. How much more of the race did you have to go? Like what time did the race end?
2 p.m.
2 p.m. Okay. So you had
2 p.m. was the only cutoff that we had.
Okay. So 12 more hours to go.
We had plenty of time.
Yeah.
But then anyway, we have plenty of time. And I think we left the TA for the next section. What was it? Like at 2:30 a.m. or something like that? I forgot.
Well, we got in at 1:45 and we left about 2:50.
Oh, okay. So then we went to the next section,
which was the last section.
Yes.
After TA5.
And originally, the plan was to get all the mandatory points. And I missed the first re-entrant, and then I found it again. I went back and I found it. This time I was listening to the river downstream, so I'm looking at the map and I see the river gets closer. Okay, I'm here. River is far away. Okay, I'm not hearing anymore. But then I miss the re-entrant, and then I go back and I try to get that re-entrant to get that first checkpoint. Let's see. Yeah. So I mean.
So
that re-entrant was rough.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. The thing is, yeah, we had to go back and forth several times, and then we went back, and then I found the re-entrant. But like, well, first of all, we missed the first thing we did. We missed that fork. First, we missed that fork.
Yes.
When we were going, as we were going east, we missed that fork, and then we kept going, and then I see the river there. So I just go by ear, and you know, when I start hearing it closer, then I start not hearing again. That's like a little bloop there. Then I hear again. So I'm navigating by ear now. I say, oh, I think we went too far. So we went back, and I start navigating by ear again. Once I hear the river and I don't hear anymore, okay, now the re-entrant is there, because in the lower part, that re-entrant in the lower side of that road, you can barely notice that re-entrant. And then we went up there. There were several falls that were dry, and then we kept going. That was like 1,000 feet of elevation.
It was rough.
Steep. Yeah,
it was rough.
And track, it looks like
I actually love that one.
Thing.
No, I actually like that one. I actually like that one. That one was it was 1,000 feet of elevation, and there was a lot of rocks and stuff, and it was very steep. But I like that one because see, we were getting cold. And then by the time we reached that point over there, then it's like, oh, I'm feeling
warm now.
Yeah, I'm very warm now. And I'm very warm.
And I had my trekking poles.
Yay!
Because we had just left the bend.
So why did you choose to come back down instead of go up to this?
Yes. Plateau? Okay. So out of those that you see there, out of those points that you see there, some of them are mandatory, some of them are not. Remember, they show the whole thing, right? So originally I was thinking about going up and doing the whole loop, but then I decided to go back down and then go and attack the other checkpoints on that site on the west, and then go and go up the re-entrant there to get those other 2 points, and then continue to do the loop that way to get the points that were mandatory. That was the original plan. So then we went. So instead of keep going up, we went down again. Kind of like I think that was another mistake to go down again, but we did. But now instead of now Anna said that she wanted to take the road, so that's why you see the road there, and then we go. So then we go back to that point. We go on that re-entrant. We know that we can go up, but that checkpoint checkpoint that you see there, that checkpoint that is close to there. Yeah, so 26. Yeah, that checkpoint looks from in the map looks way easier than what it really is because you really can't find. Look at that, we were almost there.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
so much back and forth on that road, looking.
I think we almost. Well, it was very steep. It was very difficult to get to, and there was another point on the creek also, which was one of those points that Brent likes to put that are not in the map. There was like a point on the creek between those two checkpoints, and it was not in the map. So we wasted a lot of time trying to get to that checkpoint, and we unfortunately didn't get it. And then we were thinking about going to the other checkpoint on the right on the right there, which was another mandatory. And then right there, I was like, okay, we're gonna skip this one. Let's go up. So now here we're debating whether to keep going up to the reentrant or not.
Well, hold on. I don't want to. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but you said something I was curious about. You said that there was a point that was not on the map.
Correct.
And so is that where pretty much like it might be in a riverbed, and you, in order to stay in the riverbed,
yes,
he puts it some random place, and you have to go all along the riverbed until you find it.
Yes, just like the two rivers of 3 years ago. Just like the two rivers of 3 years ago, where points were not on the map, and there was a point between F2 and 26. There was another point there. He just didn't tell you where it was. You have to go and walk the whole thing and find it.
Yeah, that's kind of a clever thing to do. It definitely forces you to be in the shit.
The best way to get 26 would have been to go ahead to F12, then go get that point between F12 and 26, then get F26.
Yeah.
Now here is where the mind screws with you and screws with both of us, because then I'm about to go up there, that reentrant. We're about to make that decision to go up, and we're debating. And the problem is that we're debating about this, but then it's freaking 35 degrees and we're standing still, and now we're shivering instead of just going up.
Yeah.
And that's when the mind plays games with you, and then like I don't know, I guess like we both kind of quit at that point, both of us.
Because I guess what you're saying is you could have gone up that reentrant and then headed southwest and tagged 2 or 3 more points.
Correct.
And come back down. You could have done that as a loop and bushwhacked
correct
the middle and mapped more points. But at the end of the day, it's like like whatever situation that you're in, whether it's you're freezing cold, you're wet, you're hungry, like
well, okay, let me put it this way. We know Anna knows that her legs were being messed up, but she was able to climb that reentrant that was even steeper than the other two, right? Nevertheless, even though her legs were messed up, she doesn't give up. She's like, let's keep going. So she's like, in her head, she's not giving up. So now I'm the one who, even though I'm feeling well and my feet are great, my legs are great, but then I'm the one who's like messing my mind up. So it's like your mind starts playing with you. And even though Anna says, I'm fine either way, if you want to keep going, we can keep going. And then, like, I don't know.
I think the downward spiral started for our team when we knew we were going to miss that mandatory checkpoint.
Yes, that plays a game on you too, yes.
Right. So that's when the downward spiral started.
Yeah. Oh, we've just been there when it just falls apart because of one thing like that. It just
and we literally like we actually have somebody, like, I'm normally the guy, I want the maps, I want to go after checkpoints, I don't care about the overall race. I need somebody that's looking at the overall race saying, Chip, you've got to give up some points. We're not going to make the next transition. We're not going to make the cutoff. I need an adult in the room, because I'm like the kid in the woods trying to find checkpoints.
Well, we still have plenty of time. We had plenty. I mean, it took us way too long to get that point on that reentrant, which I loved that, by the way. I love that that big reentrant with the big rocky things on the hill. I love that one. But we wasted so much time that then, like, your mind also plays. We had plenty of time to at least get, even if we didn't clear the Mandos, we could have gotten at least 6 or 7 more easy. But then, the mind messes up with you, and that's where, I don't know. I'm disappointed in saying that, but yeah. It wasn't your legs, Anna. It was my mind too. So
it's a really hard position to be in, especially if there's not one person on the team, really telling everybody this is what we're doing right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think back to when we were in Africa at the very last leg and we gave up our first point and we're like, you know what? None of us were in it anymore. We're just like, we just got to get to the end.
Yeah. And
all of us felt that way.
All the team.
Yeah.
And we're talking 4 people said, we've cleared the course to this point. At this point, let's just give it up.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where they always say if you're solo, you can go fast. If you want to go far, you have to have a team. And the hope is a 4-person team, all 4 are not in the same bad downturn at the same time, which is what kind of whacked us while we were in Africa. And by the end of the day, it's like you guys were just a 2-person team. So if both of you were at a low point at the same time, because it's cold and shitty, it's easy to just give up everything and then go.
Yes.
It's hard to have, especially after you've been going for 24 or 30 hours or whatever. Like the mental toughness there is like you got to dig deep to keep going when it's that cold and you're wet.
Yeah, but I don't feel good about the decision that I think was more my decision than your decision. Even you were saying that I think I take responsibility for that one. I think it was my decision to call it quits, and I'm not happy about making that decision.
The beauty of it, though, and we didn't know this at the time, was it didn't matter. Even though we left so much time on the clock. I mean, we left like 6 hours on the clock. So when he sent me a text that we got third, I was like, how?
Well, the thing is that we're also thinking there were 6 teams in our division, and then like that's another thing that playing into your mind games because they're like, well, we're not ranking anyway. I don't know. It sounds like a losing attitude, but it's like we're not ranking anyway. We're like that also played into the role of like leaving earlier, even though we should have continued regardless. Now, have we gotten those extra 7 points? We'll still be the same ranking in that case. But it doesn't matter. We're supposed to be there for the full 30 hours. So I still take responsibility for that. We should have kept going.
Yeah. And when multiple reasons start to add up, it's just really hard. It's the mental toughness it takes to say, this is going to pass. But I think that is the key, try to take a minute to gather yourselves up, maybe rest, maybe eat something, try to get warm, and then make a decision. If you're
there was no getting warm at that point. Actually, there was a way to get warm. Going up the
retreat,
that would have gotten us warm. Yes.
Well, did you have your space blankets with you?
Oh yeah, but I didn't use them.
So those do work wonders. You can put those underneath your rain jackets, and that'll warm you up really well. But I'm wondering, like, if you're disappointed in the decision you made at that time, what would you do next time? If you feel that
keep going.
How would you get out of it?
Just next time I have to like hit myself and keep going, especially if there's plenty of time.
Well, I think too, once you have decided not to keep going, the next time you have an opportunity to keep going, you have that time that you keep thinking back to, like, oh, there's that race that I should have just kept going.
Correct.
So now for you next time, you'll be like, oh, I don't want that to happen again. So it will be easier for you to keep going.
Now let me try to answer her question a different way than she just answered it. Before you answer it, Tomas, because I can see your face, and we have raced together on multi-day, like 5-day races. If you have raced in colder environments for a longer period of time, then when you do a race that's only 30 hours, you're like, this is a piece of cake. You remember the time we did, whatever race, pick it, Endless Mountains or Africa or whatever, we went for 48 hours on a bike and we're only 12 hours in. It can't be that bad.
Correct.
So one part of adventure racing, and I think this really it transitions over to life, is that once you've pushed your limits, getting back to that limit is super easy compared to you're there for the first time. So a brand new adventure racer, their first time doing a 24-hour race, getting to the 24th hour is extremely difficult. But if it's your first time doing an 8-day race and you've gone 5 days, or or let's say the other way, if you've done an 8-day race and you're doing the sea to sea across Florida, it's only 74 hours. It's like, oh, this is nothing. We've done 8 days before.
It's not that easy because once your motivators start slipping away, like then your motivation is kind of like, well, I'm not motivated because of that reason or that reason or that. You have to find a new reason to be motivated. Right. And I think really the realization that this too shall pass is one of the things that keeps me going sometimes when I'd like to not keep going. But I don't know, Anna, is there anything you do differently at that time?
I was so awestruck by watching the other, like the high level teams, while we were both standing there freezing and he was looking at the map, just to seeing them just like galloping like gazelles across the landscape. I mean, it was like they were moving with such agility, and I could see their headlamps and see their packs. It was just outstanding. But at the same time, I think that also messed with my mind because I was like, they're out there doing it. I'm not at their level, so I probably shouldn't be out there doing it. And speaking to what you had just said, like our why had disappeared because we were giving up that mandatory checkpoint. So when our why disappeared, our reason for going forward disappeared as well. And then I started thinking about the 9-hour drive I had home because the original thought was, okay, we finish at 2, say we come screaming into the finish line at 2 p.m. And then you have the 2:30 award ceremony and dinner. So by the time you do all that, it's 4:30. Maybe you get out of 5 and he's starting a 7-hour drive and I'm starting a 9-hour drive. And we haven't even talked about sleep yet. So it was like, it was not the ideal way to fit in sleep by finishing a race 6 hours early, but we were both able to get the sleep we needed to safely get home.
Yeah, and real life starts creeping in once you start thinking about what's next. Yeah, and the motivation really plummets, I think.
And that's a bummer about adventure racing is in the perfect world, you have a van that you can sleep in. And I know Tomas has one, and I'm not sure about you, Anna, but like I know Tomas could just pull over at any rest stop and sleep in his little minivan, and he's fine. I know Andrea and I are fine. We've like designed our lifestyle around adventure racing. But for the average Joe, the average Sarah that just has a Honda, or a Camry or a Toyota or whatever, you have to get a hotel before and after the race, and it's a what do you call it? It's a disincentive to do the race because you've got to like get there for bike drop or map handout super early in the morning, which means you have to sleep next to the race, and then you're done after 30 hours. And you need to sleep after the race. So if you don't have a car you can sleep in, you have to have a hotel room on the front and back end. And I believe that's kind of it's a bad part about our sport.
Well, it's a barrier.
It's a barrier for our
It's
sport.
logistically challenging and time consuming and expensive.
Right. And I do have a van, but Murphy struck early. So I turned my bike and my van in to get maintenance to pick it up to do this race, right? So, and I had a lot of work it was like the water pump and this and that. It was like $1,400 worth of work on the van. So I picked the van up, picked my bike up. The next morning I go to start the van it was Thursday, to go to work because I was leaving directly after work for Pennsylvania. It wouldn't start. Oh. And I'm thinking, wow. I left the light on or something because I was up packing the van until like 1 a.m. But it would turn over, but it wouldn't stay started. Well, long story short, they brought a tow truck. They didn't plug something in that they had unplugged to do the work. So I had to take my car up there. So Murphy struck early. So I had to put the bike carrier on my car, like pretty much take everything out of the van, put everything in the car, and then go up there. I had some really, really gracious Airbnb hosts though. And they met Tomas and they let him stay there too. And it turned out, it was a bad situation that turned out well.
I still stay in my van. It's just like in my van, but park outside of our house.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to the positive though, because you guys were official finishers.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think there were 60 teams and something like almost 9 or 10 teams were unofficial or didn't finish. And, a challenging race, you finished, you're still friends. That's always our goal.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So, what I'm saying is it could have been worse.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's true.
And another thing to tell yourself when you're down and out is that all the other teams are having the same challenges too. So you never know. Like you said, so you guys were third in your category.
Yes, that was totally unexpected. That was totally unexpected. I was there at the award ceremony. I'm like, really serious? What?
I was already on 995 South.
Yeah, there is a reason for that, and the reason for that was that the team behind us didn't get that point that we got. Like the team behind us didn't go for the last track, Anna. So then basically by getting that point on that creek, 1,000 feet elevation in that rocky area,
that did it for us.
That's what gave us the place.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, adventure racing is hard. So it's awesome that you finished. And we need to hear some highlights. But did you have a high? What was your high?
Mine was that this race was long enough that we both got to practice being good teammates. Our lows weren't at the same time. My low struck very early in the beginning of the race, and Tomas took my pack. But there was an opportunity during the bike leg that I got to return the favor. That we both got to be good teammates. We both got to carry each other's packs. We both got to carry the tracker and the passport. So it was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love to hear that. What about you, Tomas?
My high actually was that last point. Actually, when we were going, no, actually, I for some reason I enjoyed that one the most. Going up that rocky steep thing there in that re-entrant, getting that point 1,000 feet elevation. I for some reason I like that one. Look, there was a lot of rocks and stuff to go through. Again, the point was supposed to be like we saw a lot of empty falls, But that was for me. That was mine. That was a highlight for me. I liked it.
And was that because it was beautiful, or just that it was challenging or unique?
I got to warm up, I guess.
Well, maybe you need to pack like more warm stuff next time. Would you do that?
Maybe.
If you're cold, you're not going fast enough.
Or use
that is true. That is true. Yes. Yeah. Cool. Now, IT. Can we talk about? Can you guys tell us what to do about IT band issues?
Yes.
So maybe. And is that the problem you were struggling with, Anna?
I don't know, because I never had it happen before. So I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what to do about it, anything.
Yeah. So usually it's, that band that connects your hip and your knee on the outside of your leg. And Chip and I have both had a problem with it. It's been a while since we have, but we did the Triple Crown here in Virginia. And towards the end, it can be really painful to bend your knee, especially. So like peg legging
that's exactly what was going on.
Yeah. So if you're peg legging because it feels better, you probably have an IT band issue. And I think, long term is strengthening, but short term is really a lot of pressure massage in the right places around your knee if you just dig into that tendon and loosen it up, that can help. If you use a foam roller on the floor with a mat, you can, YouTube that of how to actually roll your IT band out. I think that can help. What else, Chip? Since we're experienced with IT band
we're experienced with IT band. The first time I've ever DNF'd from a race was the Shenandoah Epic, and it was a 24-hour solo, and I was having IT band issues while I was on the ridge line, and like I couldn't walk. I was peg legging and teams are flying by and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think so." It's still light outside, but I realized there's no helicopter coming, and like nobody's gonna come up here with a stretcher and get me. I have to self-rescue. And I made it down to the water, and the only way I did it was walking downhill backwards. Like it literally, like I couldn't walk forward downhill, but I could walk backwards downhill, and everything's fine. And those of you that have done the Shenandoah Epic, it's like the Shenandoah Mountains or whatever. It's like a skateboard ramp. So like it's really really steep at the very top, and it gets better and better as you come down. But it was really really hard. And then what I realized is, in adventure racing, you need to train harder than you race. And what I was doing wrong at the time is I was running on roads and normal stuff. We live in Virginia Beach, or we lived in Virginia Beach. We just moved recently, which is going to be a future podcast. But either way, we lived on flat land. And I was training in Virginia Beach and running on roads. And then you can't take that training and move to Shenandoah and think that's going to work. So either way, the way to get the IT band problem to stop occurring is you got to put elevation into your training on a regular basis. So wherever you trail run, which you should trail run versus treadmill or road, it needs to have elevation up and down. It needs to have roots. You need to be paying attention because you're going to trip and fall. You need to have a weighted pack. And then after you do that, IT bans go away. What Andrea said is correct. If you're trying to like fix your IT ban because of an incident, then yeah, roll it out. But on a regular basis, you need to train harder than you race. More weight, higher elevation on a regular basis, and then you'll be fine, in my experience. Hopefully that works.
I'm gonna add something to that, and this is something that everybody can do, not just on hills or everything. This is something that I started doing, and it helped me a lot. And this one has nothing to do with elevation or stuff like that, but it's something that you change in your daily habit. And by that I mean, don't sit down, like for real. Like, I work in front of a computer. I don't sit down for the whole day, all over the place, and walk off them. So even if I'm working on my actual work, for my job, so for some reason that has helped me a lot, even though it's just stationary. But because I'm doing it the whole day, like my butt barely sees a chair in the whole day. For some reason, that has helped me when I go into the trails, when I go outside, when I go ahead and do this and do that. I don't know if that does something or not, but once I started not sitting down at all, that helps substantially. So
I totally agree. Standing up, having a stand-up workstation, or the ability to have a stand-up workstation for some parts of the day, is absolutely very, very important for an athlete. That does not negate the need for walking
of
up
course,
where your Achilles is angled, and walking downhill where
definitely,
you're getting the whatever, your thighs are feeling
yeah.
you're stopping. So do orienteering meets, like where you're going up and downhill and up and down. The more wonky terrain that you can get your hands on, the more you're not going to have an IT problem. But if you train on stable, flat ground on a regular basis, your knees and your ankles and everything are not going to be ready for wonky terrain. And adventure racing is all about wonky.
But it's also generally an overuse injury if you're getting pain in your IT band. It's it's you I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to work yourself up to that. You can't just,
Yeah.
At some point, if you're going for longer than you're usually going, you might have some injuries, and tendon related injuries are probably some of the most common things adventure racers probably have to deal with, I think, is tendon type stuff.
Yes. But don't chalk it up to that you're old, because we've had these problems, and because of our training, we've solved the problem without any surgery or anything. We changed our training, and now we're at 52, 51, and we're still racing, and we feel like we are at the highest peak of our performance. even though we've had IT bans in the problem.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
good.
in the past. So the I guess for the people listening, it's not you can change your training and you can get to the point where IT band is not a problem anymore. It's not a
Okay.
age thing, it's a training problem.
And
Okay.
I would say that it bothered me so much that I thought I'm never going to run again. I'm too old.
Wow.
I'm done running. And that was probably 8 years ago or something
Yes.
that I said I'm never running again because of this knee pain. And then I, worked it out, figured it out, and
At the Shenandoah Epic on the 24-hour, I said, I am not never doing another race this long. This is stupid. And then
Ah,
now I'm like, I
so
can't wait for the next 8-day race.
so
It's all about training. It's not about age. You can work through this. Yeah.
And I will say
so
too that I think there's always something that's a little niggle. Like there's always something that's a little bit like, oh, I've got to be careful because right now my hamstring on my right leg's like a little tight. So I even though I don't have IT band problems, I still think it's kind of almost a normal thing to have something that you're paying attention to. If you're doing any distance of any kind, you're training a lot, you're just going to have to deal with these things. It's not going to be perfect ever. Is that too negative? I don't know. That's what it's like for me.
okay.
So.
The reason for which I wanted you guys to talk about this is because I knew nothing about it, and I never. I've been fortunate that I've never experienced that. Maybe at some point I will. Maybe at some point I won't. Hopefully not. Hopefully never. But the reason for which I'm talking about this is because, like in Africa with JD, in the first trekking leg, he had IT band issues. That's the first time I learned about that. And then basically he told me what to do to him. And then he told me to take my elbow and just like try to like do this. And then he started yelling, ah! I'm like hey, do I need a safe word? so, so, so then he's telling me what to do to his area. And like I go in and doing this, right? And then of course, then I ended up like pulling him and doing all sorts of things. Great. And then in this race, in the beginning of the race, Anna describes the issues. I'm like, well, this is super familiar to what JD was having. So then I go to Anna, okay, Anna, I'm gonna take my elbow, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna do what I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna do to you what JD told me to do to him. So I start, and it's gonna hurt. So I start going like this, and she's like, yeah, I told you it's gonna hurt. Whether that helped her or not, I have no clue. So maybe we all should get better at knowing how to deal with those issues while it happens in the race also.
Did
We'll
it
have to
help,
figure
Anna?
something out.
I think the only thing that really helped is when I just sat on the log, because I remember telling Tomas, I feel like it's holding my knee hostage. Because like you said, I couldn't bend my knee to get over logs and stuff. But I was willing to do whatever he thought would help. And when he did that, like it was so painful, I was sweating. Like it hurt so bad while he did that.
Yeah, I had someone do that to me once before, and he said, it's really going to hurt, and you might even pass out. So I know what you're talking about. If you pushed in that spot really, really hard, and the doctor I went to had me bend and flex my leg at the same time that you're pushing on that specific spot that's close to your knee. I wouldn't say though that you should just try that on anyone, anywhere. Like I don't even know if I do it right, but it is something to consider. Yeah.
One thing that a teammate should always do to another teammate when something like that happens, you take that backpack out of that teammate as soon as possible. That's the first thing you that the very first thing you do with a teammate that is going through that. That's the first thing you do. Take that backpack out of that teammate.
Yep.
I agree. And again, walking backwards. If it's downhill, you walk backwards and you can get through an IT band issue. I'm sorry, you can move forward with an IT band issue. Another thing that Stefan and from Stefan Muller from Expedition Africa and all that is that you're like Tomas, you're talking about having a stand-up workstation, but you're probably standing on a flat surface. And so if you have like a 2-inch thick pad where you're standing, and if you lift up one leg, your ankle has to be kind of wonky on because the foam makes you move around. That'll help also on ankle issues to build
Oh,
stability in your ankles while you're standing at your workstation. Because if you're doing the blue heron thing where you lift up one leg and you stand on the other, you let your ankle sit there and balance your body. And that was another thing. Andrea
Yeah,
was having
there's
some
some
problems with
word for
her.
that pad. But I have like maybe it's more like 3 or 4 inches
Yeah,
thick, and it's like a square that
like two by
has
two.
instructions, for stand on one foot for 30 seconds and do this however many times a day. So I don't follow it specifically to the T, but I think it does help you. I need to remember, what is it called?
Let's call it ankle stability. Like because we're not
okay.
Stefan,
You
we're
know
not
what?
a physical therapist, but either
No,
way,
There's a mat you can buy on
I
Amazon, and
like that.
I'll put a link.
I like that a lot. I'm gonna try that because I'm already used to standing up the whole day. But if I can do that to get more wonkiness into my ankles, because no matter what, I have to work. So I still have to work. So I might as well just go ahead and be on my legs when I'm working. But if I can add some ankle stability to it, oh, thank you
yeah,
for
you'll
telling me that. I'm definitely.
Andrea's pulling it
Oh
up
yeah,
right now. We're gonna add ankle wonkiness to all of your
yeah.
lives. Seriously, this is the nugget that you pulled away from this podcast. If you made it this far, is ankle
Yes.
Here it
wonkiness.
is.
This is
Okay,
the
this is
pad that you need to get. Okay,
I'm going to
so
share my screen, and this is I am sharing the tracker.
yeah, there
There
you
it
go.
is. It's a balance pad, a foam, a large foam yoga mat trainer for physical therapy, stability workout, knee and ankle exercise. Anyway, see, it's just like a foam pad. And you'd think you're not doing anything, but it really does work your ankles and all of your tendons around there.
If you're
And
standing on one leg, you got to perch like a bird, like one
Okay.
leg, and you try to balance yourself because it's 2 inches.
there's all
Okay.
sorts of different things you can do with it.
But by the way, this gives me another idea. Just off the top of my head, I'm gonna start also standing on tennis balls.
We didn't tell you to do that. If you want to do that, you have fun with that.
No, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try that just to see, just standing on tennis balls.
Tell us how that works out for you.
Okay.
Wear your bike helmet.
But wear your helmet. Make sure your insurance is up to date. Yeah. How about just get the $20 pad from Amazon and try that
All
first.
right. I'm gonna look
Call
that.
Stefan and say, Stefan, what about standing on tennis balls?
Well, the tennis
Yeah,
balls are
tennis
all
ball, basketballs, whatever.
Maybe roll out your plantar fasciitis with tennis balls. Don't stand on them, like don't perch on them. Yeah. Either
All
way.
right.
Great, Tomas.
Okay, guys. Well, what's next? What races are in your future?
We got some big ones.
Any ideas?
I don't think I have anything through the end of the year. I'm just focused on my Panama trip with my girlfriends and just doing nothing.
Nice. Well, get an AR on your calendar.
Yeah,
You do
yeah.
want to continue racing?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just I feel like it's kind of slowed down this time of year.
Yeah, it does.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, because obviously you don't have anything on your calendar, C2C is a great, like, we love it. We've done it 6 times. We're doing it again for a 7th. That's a great expedition length race. You can do it at whatever party pace you want, or you can do it at full speed. It's up to you. Highly recommend putting that on your calendar,
Mhm.
and of
That's
course,
where we met.
Yeah,
where we met.
last year. That's where we met last year.
Right.
Yeah, we've
No,
all
it
done
wasn't last year.
one.
It was
Yeah.
this year.
This year. This February. Yeah.
So do that again if you can. Put that on your calendar. We want to. I mean, that's like a family reunion. Like we want to see
Yeah.
everybody there.
Mhm.
But
What about you, Tomas?
I don't have anything right now lined up. I gotta change that. I don't. But most likely C2C. And I gotta get something bigger next year too. And I need to get something longer next year as well.
Yeah. Well, we are getting ready to go to Ecuador for the World Championship.
Yeah.
It's a tiny race. Like it's short, 8 days or 9 days or something.
Pretty exciting. And then in January, we're headed to New Zealand for the Magnificent.
Ooh,
awesome. Nice.
So we've got 2 huge races coming up.
And then a tiny little race after New Zealand, we get back and then we do C to C.
Nice.
That's just a follow-up. Like
that's going to be your cool down race.
We have absolutely overbooked ourselves starting in November all the way through February. This is stupid. Nobody should do this.
I mean, it's going to be great, but it is usually when we are having some downtime. So
yeah,
it's kind of strange.
The whole cheating on the diet, and eating carbs and getting fat and all that. Like this is not happening this year. It's going to suck.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for chatting with us, and everyone out there, thanks for listening, and see you next time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please take a moment to leave a rating and a comment.
If you have a question for the next mailbag segment, call 757-354-4795 and leave us a voicemail or a text with your name, city you are calling from, and your question.
To find additional content, including the video versions of these discussions, you can search for thisABILITY Racing on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
We hope this podcast inspired you to focus on your abilities and plan your next adventure.
See you on the trail.